And I believe I am live. Yes, sir. Hello, everyone. My name is Danny Segura, and welcome to my weekly live Q&A where I answer all your questions regarding the world of MMA, combat sports, and anything else that's on your mind. You might know me from MMA Junkie. That's where I work. Previously, MMA Fighting, worked with the MMA Beat and the MMA Hour. So, yeah, let's get this thing cracking. I've asked you guys to submit questions via Twitter. But that's not the only not the only place you guys can participate in. So I'm gonna read it and tackle the Twitter questions first, and then I'll take things to the live chat where you guys are. I already see you guys are arguing and causing all kind of havoc, and I'll tackle those questions then. Usually, how this works, I go about an hour, sometimes a little bit over, and yeah. So whenever I'm done with the Twitter questions, I'll use the remaining time within that hour to tackle the stuff in the live chat. So a lot to talk about today. I appreciate everybody that submitted questions. That way we can get going quick. Obviously, we just wrapped up with UFC 247 last night. Jon Jones defeating, right? Dominick Reyes via unanimous decision. In the main event, in the co-main event, we had Valentina Shevchenko defending her belt once again. I think that there was no controversy there, defeating a very tough Katlyn Chookagian, but nonetheless just proving that she's miles ahead of everybody else in the division. No disrespect to anyone there or Katlyn. It's just that's how good Valentina is. So a lot to talk about, and there's a few other things that happened on that card. It wasn't the best card, but a few other things that I think are probably worth talking about. Hopefully, we can address that in questions. If not, I might just ask myself and bring that stuff up. All right, so let's do this. Also, hope everyone's having a good Sunday. This live Q&A is brought to you by good old Colombian coffee. Brought this from Pereira from my recent trip. Still running on that good stuff. But once you see my performance in the future live chats drop, it's because I probably ran out of that coffee. So anyways, before I start answering questions, let me pop the live chat here just so I have it on this screen. And it's easier to tackle once I'm done with the Twitter questions. All right, cool. So that's there. All right, let's do it. The Executioner 91 on Twitter asks, how reliable are strike stats for validating a decision? Reyes was landing mostly in flurries from round 2 to 5, though he landed the more visual for the judges is Jon landing in between flurries throughout the round. Should technology be used in judging more objectivity? No, I think the way it's, I don't think, I'm not sure actually if current judges have access to stats. I mean, I believe we have that because obviously we're watching the broadcast and they have a graphics package that they're able to go back to the truck and call for replays. Even the commentators are able to see the replays, even if they're not like broadcasting on the pay-per-view. They're able to go back and see and maybe give us some correction on something we've missed, but their job is to commentate and make sure everything is, give us the most information as possible from the actual broadcast. Whereas the judging, their job is not to inform us of anything. Their job is just to look at the fight and judge the fight. And I think the moment you have stats given to them and other various technologies, as you mentioned, maybe instant replay or whatever, that could be very distracting. I think your job is you sit on your stool and you watch the fight and you tell me who won in the end. There's obviously a lot of controversy floating around, a lot of split decisions on that card, and just the main event scoring was very, very funky. And one judge in particular that just had funky scoring throughout the entire night. I think that just speaks more about how objective scoring is in MMA, how we use a system that's not built for MMA but for boxing, and it can work because it's a similar sport, but it's still very different, and those differences need to be catered to by the system, and they're not. So that's why we have some sketchy decisions. Personally, I thought Dominick Reyes won. I had him winning the first 3 rounds, and then I thought Jon Jones took the last 2. And for me, it wasn't like, there was some bouts, like, for example, the Ilir Latifi, Derek Lewis fight. Like, the first round, I had a tough time, like, really figuring out who won it. And then the second one, I thought Latifi won pretty convincingly, and then the third, I thought Lewis won. But anyways, I'm just saying that because there were a few fights that I really had to like sit there and really compute everything that I just saw to figure out who won. Whereas this one, for me, with Reyes, it was pretty clear he won the first. It was pretty clear he won the second. Third, Jones stepped it up, and it was a lot closer, but I still thought he did enough. And I remember when that third round was over, I tweeted, I'm like, I got Dominick Reyes up 3 rounds. Like, wow. Like, because for me, it was pretty obvious that he was up. So yeah, I mean, but again, if you scored it for Jones, I don't think it's terrible either. I do think what's really bad is that 49-46 scorecard from that judge. Is it George Solis or something like that? Let me pull him up. I wrote an article about him last night, but that was like at like 3 a.m. in the morning, so my brain was somewhere else. Yeah, that was pulling up here an article on matchmaking.com. Yeah, Joe Solis. Yeah, bad scorecard. I don't know how you can possibly watch that fight and only give 1 round to Dominick Reyes. It's not good. It's not good. And what round did he give? I'm looking at the score. I have the scorecard pulled up right in front of me. Let's see. Yeah, that was not good. Let's see. All right, so he gave. Check this out. So the first round, he gave it a 10-9 to Dominick Reyes. Okay, that seems like a pretty that he got that. But then from that point on, he gave the second to Jon Jones, the third to Jon Jones, the fourth, the fifth. How can you possibly give the second to Jon Jones? I don't know. But that is bad. But yeah, to answer your question, no, I think there just needs to be a better system. Technology might just complicate things. I think you're stepping into a territory where you give them stats, you give them a few other tools, and all of a sudden, like, the job becomes a lot more difficult. And it's already a pretty difficult job. So I would say no. Just make a better system. Have people that are more competent, that understand the sport a lot better. And which is surprising. This guy, Joe Solis, I was actually checking out his Facebook page when I was like writing the article just to get a little bit of background info. And there was so much martial arts there. I think he does jiu-jitsu, and like he doesn't look like a newbie. Like, I'm not saying he's a black belt or some expert, but he certainly looked like someone that knows about the sport and trains. So surprised. And for example, I scored the fight back to and I'm using this example just to showcase how we can disagree, but as long as you provide to me an argument, an educated argument, and you're able to articulate and you're able to explain your reasoning behind certain things, then I might completely disagree. But if I hear you out and I see the facts and see how you base your judging on, then maybe I could just be like, okay, we disagree, but I realize you are taking this seriously, and you're knowledgeable, right? But we don't hear from the judges, so we have no idea what was going on through a guy's mind. But what we do know is, from what I briefly looked at, I mean, he looks pretty in tune with MMA, so it's surprising. But yeah, crazy, insane. All right, moving on to the next question. Zach to the future. And I like this question because it was a good one. Wait, should I address this now? I'll skip it. Sorry, Zach. I'll tackle Joshua's question first, and then I'll go back to yours. I think just it works better with the flow. Joshua Rittenhouse on Twitter asks, was that fight enough to prove that Jon is not the GOAT? Nope. The GOAT argument is all about, you talk about the greatest of all time. The GOAT argument is all about results and facts. Yes, Jon Jones didn't get a super convincing win, but he's been defending his belt. I think he's got the most title defenses, or the most title wins in UFC history at 14. Mike Bong from my site, MMAJunkie.com, had that stat. Was it 13 or 14? Regardless, that means he's won the most title fights in UFC history, which is ridiculous stat. And he's been dominating fools for a very, very long time. So, even Anderson Silva, who's regarded as one of the best or one of the greatest prior to the whole PED issues, I think that tainted his legacy a lot. But even before that, he had performances like the Damian Maia one, which was quite boring, or say the Chael Sonnen one, where he got literally dominated and he got his ass whooped until the very end. So I don't think that changes anything. The bottom line is that Jon Jones is still the champion. Jon Jones is still the best light heavyweight on the planet. If anything, this win just furthers his legacy and the conversation of him being the GOAT. Now, is there questions about his future and where he's at and the type of, maybe not the type of competition he can beat, because he's pretty much unbeaten and he maybe will continue to do so, but how he's doing it. Can he be as dominant as he once was before? I have no doubts that he can go on and still keep winning. No doubts about that. I just have doubts about how he can do it. Like, he's not winning the way the previous ways he was doing it before. That could be a series of things. It could be, the level of the game has caught up. There's a lot of footage on him, and people are able to study him a lot better. He's no longer this mysterious rising figure in the division. Guys are getting better too. Maybe he's slowing down. I don't know. Maybe a combination of all things. But Jon Jones, in my opinion, Georges St. Pierre is the greatest of all time. But Jon Jones is right behind him, and he still has the opportunity to surpass him, obviously being an active fighter and still building on his legacy. But that fight doesn't mean anything as far as his questioning the status of him being the greatest of all time or one of the greatest of all time. If anything, that result furthered his legacy. So, yeah. All right, now back to the question that I said I was going to get to. Zach to the Future on Twitter asks, did Jones' performance against Reyes make a potential fight against Adesanya more likely? And is that fight more competitive than many people believed after seeing Jones almost lose his title at UFC 247? Great question, and see how I read that nice and smoothly, because, I'm not hating, but so some of the questions submitted, I'm always like trying to figure out the wording. Nice and smooth. Great job, Zach, and also fantastic question. This was something I thought about. To be honest, after the fight was over, I completely forgot about Adesanya. Like, he just, I'm working. A million things are going through my mind. Still processing everything, right? And then Adesanya tweeted LOL. That's it. And I retweeted. I thought it was funny. Yeah, and then that's when it hit me. I'm like, oh, this fight with Adesanya, I remember just a few months ago when they both started engaging on Twitter and going back and forth. I remember everyone used to just talk about yo, keep Adesanya away from Jon Jones. Yeah, that could be a big fight down the line. It could be a big fight in the future. But for now, Adesanya needs to keep building his legacy, get better to take on Jon Jones. Jon Jones is too much for him. That was kind of the feel. A lot of it was, one, because obviously Jon Jones is very good, but a lot of it was the size too. And Adesanya has always been vocal about this. He's not a big 185er, and Jones is a big 205er. So a big disadvantage there, right? But after watching the fight with Dominick Reyes, I never thought that Adesanya would get washed anyways, but I do think now that it would be a lot more competitive than I think it was originally. And also, I'm wondering if people even favor him if they were to fight, because I would say with confidence that Adesanya is a better striker than Dominick Reyes. I don't think that's a hot take, right? I'm not being crazy here. And not throwing any shade to Reyes. He's good. He's a good striker. Proved that on Saturday night, obviously. But Adesanya is really good. He's a good striker. I think the difference. So on the feet, I actually think that I actually think Adesanya might he'll definitely give him some trouble, and I think he might beat him on the feet. He might get the best of him. Now his striking is a different style than Reyes. Reyes uses a lot more power. You really, he was talking about his athleticism all the time, and I played baseball, and I'm an athlete, and this and that, and a lot of people were kind of roasting him a little bit because of that, because this is mixed martial arts, and usually technique is favored so much more over athleticism. But dude, athleticism played a big part. Early in the fight, Reyes was just so much quicker, so much more explosive, stronger. The punches that he was throwing, he was just able to explode out of there and then be out of Jon Jones' range. So he was able to score without getting hit. That was huge. And Adesanya's an athletic guy, but I don't think he's that same type of athleticism as Reyes. Reyes is like that American athlete. So there's questions there as far as how much success Adesanya could have given his style. But I do think on the feet he could piece up Jon Jones. Now, the question there is, we saw Dominick Reyes use a lot of his athleticism, his strength, durability to defend takedowns. I mean, so many times where he was taken down and he just stood up with Jon Jones on his back. Like, that's a heavy dude. That's like a difficult thing to do. And he did that over and over. And not only that, but deep into the fight too. So he was able to use a lot of that to stuff the takedowns. Now, Adesanya doesn't really have all those tools there. His takedown defense is great, but as far as like, I don't know if he can match Jon Jones strength for strength. So if they were to lock up and it just comes down to strength, I think more likely than not, Jones puts him on his back. But yeah, I mean, I feel like after that performance, that fight became a whole lot like more compelling. I might be more interested in seeing that than maybe Jon Jones go to heavyweight. So, yeah. Zach, to answer your question, I do think it makes the fight more likely now. I think, these questions that keep Adesanya away from Jon Jones is too much too soon. I don't know if those are, I don't know. Maybe it's recency bias, but I think in my mind that fight just became a lot more closer after watching his performance at UFC 247, which was still a very good one. I'm just saying, like, yeah. All right, let's keep the train rolling. Let's see. The Executioner 91 back at it again. Do you get why Joe said a takedown shouldn't mean anything if the person gets right back up? By that logic, what about jabs or punches that land but don't hurt your opponent? Would you like to think any form of takedown is given some points? Example, takedown equals significant strike, KO equals submission. No, you can't compare everything like, a knockout means a submission, basically, or if you had somebody in, like, say, like when Misad Bektic was fighting Dan Ige, he had him in arm triangle, right? And it looked tight, but he was like surviving, and Ige eventually got out of it. But I wouldn't compare that to, he rocked them and basically, like, you got a submission locked in and it looks closed. That means, that means it was like you wobbled someone with a big hit, and then they're like, Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard fight, and they're like all over the place. No, I don't think you can do that. But I do think there should be some sort of points given to someone that took someone down. I mean, you did something that person didn't want to do. You got an advantageous position, even for a few seconds. You still got it. You're still beating someone in an area of mixed martial arts. If you're taking someone down in wrestling, that's 2 points. And if the dude's only there for a few seconds and gets back up, okay, great for that dude. But that was a takedown. Now, you're not dominating the dude, but you're beating him in that aspect. So yeah, there should be some value in taking people down and controlling them, in winning scrambles, and in being in just maybe not a lot better positions, like you're mounting someone, but like, say, like a north-south, or you got someone on turtle position, and anywhere that you're more dominant than your opponent, you should be getting points. Now, Jones wasn't in the most dominant position and didn't control the fight for really a long time, but nonetheless, he's excelling in that area. He's besting Reyes in the wrestling department. So, yeah, there should be some points to it, but I don't think it should be, huge. So, yeah, but I agree. I guess I disagree with Joe there. Like, they should mean something. Maybe not a whole lot, but it should mean something, especially in a close fight. Like, if the fight is close on the feet, and then you manage to out wrestle and get the best of the wrestling exchanges for a minute, I think that tilts the balance towards you by a decent amount, enough maybe to win the round, of course, if everything else is even. All right, next question. Misled youth. on Twitter asks, how can a person get out of ESPN Plus subscription? Thanks. That's not my area of expertise. I haven't tried, so I don't know. But I have heard, who did I hear this? I heard it from somebody in the media that they had difficulties as well canceling their subscription service of ESPN Plus, and they had to like email someone, and it was like a whole hassle thing. It's like a whole process. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, man. Also, why do you want to cancel it? I think ESPN Plus is a great service. It's cheap, right? I think, I expense all that stuff because that's my job. So it doesn't really technically come out of like my own pocket. But what? It's like what, like $6 or $7? It's like $6.99 a month, and you get all the prelims. You get good content there. Like Ariel does a lot of good stuff there. Ariel and the Bad Guy, and there's like other programming and other stuff that they do. So apart from the fights itself, you can get like some good content there for a pretty cheap price, right? And if you're into like Disney Plus and Hulu and all that, you can up it for $12.99 and then get like all that ESPN Plus. Oh, plus Serie A is there. Also, the Milan Derby is today, right, at like 2:30. Inter's playing AC Milan. So, yeah, you get Serie A. You get a bunch of sports, man. So I don't know why you want to cancel it. But, I mean, if you want to do it, go ahead. Just know it might be an odyssey because that's what I heard. All right, we got a few more questions on Twitter. We are 20 minutes in. Pretty good pacing so far. Shouts out to the coffee. It's got me feeling good. Let's see. All right, 1 second. Cool. All right. My boy, Terrence Leverett. Dude, I know I'm butchering your name. I mean, I am so sorry. You asked 2 questions. Both of them were good. Let's see. Do you think if the UFC had mandatories like they do in boxing, would it fix who's next in line for titles? Or do you think it would make it worse? As always, thanks, Danny. Well, thank you, Terrence. You're the man. Well, I think what you mean by mandatories, I'm guessing like immediate rematches and stuff like that. Like in boxing, they do these things like, like a good example would be like Anthony Joshua fought Andy Ruiz, right? And there was an immediate rematch clause in case there was an upset. There was, so they had to run it back. Andy couldn't be like, oh no, we're good now. I'm fighting someone else, or I'm gonna negotiate with these other people and see where I can get the most money. No, you're fighting Anthony Joshua, period. I think that, I don't know. I mean, I think there's good things about that because you get guaranteed fights as well. So like, for example, I think there should be an immediate rematch in the heavyweight title picture with Stipe and Daniel Cormier. Like, if Stipe were to defeat DC in their last outing, they'd be one apiece. Like, you got to run the third one back. There's, that's when a clause there would be like, it would come clutch, right? Because you get guaranteed of that. Right now, it seems like Stipe is, Cormier for some time was telling Stipe, no thanks, go get a win. And it seems Cormier's kind of like, I mean, Stipe is doing that to him in reverse, kind of taking some revenge there. I mean, he's injured as well, but I'm saying he's also like hasn't gone out there and be like, yeah, I'm fighting DC next. No, he says he wants a new challenger, someone he's never faced before. And then he's also said like, oh, he's interested in doing boxing. So that type of clause would eliminate all that noise, all that speculation, all that waiting, all that and it could add stops, right? It'll just make everything faster as well. But also, like, sometimes there's clean victories that don't that don't merit an immediate rematch. So then then that gets kind of funky. And then also, like, some contracts for certain fighters would be too overpowered. I think I don't know. I kind of like the way the UFC does it, to be honest. I think obviously with the matchmaking, especially in this day and age, like, it could be a little better as far as like giving the rightful contenders their shots. And, we've talked about this a shit ton about, this guy's getting skipped over. It shouldn't be that way, blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, the guys that deserve to fight for the title end up fighting for the title. And we, for the most part, we see the best fight the best. Something that's I can't say for boxing. So no, I like the current system, but there is a benefit to adding mandatories. To answer your question, Terrence, good question. And they could probably, I mean, we've seen MMA kind of get closer and closer to boxing. This could very well be something in the future. Like, I'm way down the line. You never know. But yeah, you never know. All right, Terrence with another question, back to back. Look at this guy. Another question. Since people think both Jones fights could have went either way, should Thiago and Dominick fight in the interim to see who gets a rematch first? I think Corey should fight next for the title should he win. So Corey Anderson is fighting next weekend against Jan Blachowicz, right? Yeah, if Corey wins, I thought Corey deserved to get a shot after he wrecked Mr. Johnny Walker. But so yeah, certainly a win at Rio Rancho would further his claim to fight for the title next. I know a lot of people don't want to see that fight because Corey's not like a big name. But man, after watching him beat Johnny Walker, it was that UFC 244. That was in New York. I was at that event. That was at MSG. I don't know. For me, all of a sudden that fight became compelling. And then when watching his look, if you all right, let's do this. If you're not excited for that fight and if you're not interested in any way by that matchup, go watch Corey Anderson's scrum post UFC 244 on MMAJunkie.com. Go check it out, and it'll get you excited for that bout. I mean, if there's bad blood anywhere, if you thought this Dominick Reyes buildup was boring, no. Corey Anderson, dude, he gives no fucks. Like, he'll get on your face. He's a man on a mission. He's an angry dude nowadays, and that has served him. That has fueled him to go on this crazy streak that he's on. I think that'd be a compelling fight. And Jon Jones said, he's from Albuquerque, so he's going to be at Rio Rancho. That's what he said at the presser last night. Most likely, he said. And if Corey gets a W, in his home state, right? Calls him out or something. Watch, there could be some buzz for that. Watch. A lot of people are discarding Corey Anderson, but I think there could be something there. I totally watch that fight. And I think he deserves it. And, just by that alone, I'm okay with the UFC booking that fight. And yeah. So yeah, I think Corey should be next. And then to answer your question about Thiago Alves fighting Dominick Reyes, since they both had close decision losses to Jon Jones, I think Thiago Santos is out for like a long time. He like messed up both of his knees, tore everything basically. He's still recovering, so I don't think he's ready to compete anytime soon. Dominick Reyes, I think there was some rumors that he might have torn his ACL, but they asked him at the presser and he said that's not true. He looked fine. He didn't look like he sustained any major injuries. So no. I mean, if they book it, they book it. But I don't think the times align up. I think Dominick Reyes should just fight anyone else. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I think after the first win, after coming off a loss against the champ, then that's when the fight matters. But the very first fight, just get a win under your belt. And then from then on, then you can start thinking about names and building a little bit of a resume to get back to the title. Now, I would say this. I think both Thiago Santos and Dominick Reyes should be giving a little get out of jail free card, in the sense that because they did have such close fights against Jones, I scored both those fights for the challengers. I think they shouldn't be forced to go on an insane win streak and beat 5 people in a row to get the next title shot. Look, if you get 2 convincing wins, we already know you're legit. We already know you can put on a hell of a fight and put an exciting fight against Jon Jones. We already know you can test Jon Jones. So get 2 good wins and you should be thrown right back in there. Granted, there's no other contenders like Corey Anderson in line, right? Because you shouldn't skip anyone either. But I don't think those 2 guys should be all that far away from getting another crack at Jon Jones. So I think that's it for Twitter questions. We're 30 minutes in, so that's a good amount of time. 50% live chat, 50% Twitter questions. Let me just go through these tweets I threw out here. just to make sure I didn't miss any, because I stacked them up in a thread, and some people replied to the main one, some people replied to the one that I just said, like, hey, I'm going live in a few minutes, stuff like that. So I just want to make sure I didn't leave anyone out, because the Twitter questions are prioritized here. So let's see. Yeah, I think that was it. Yep. All right, so I'm gonna pop the live chat here and tackle those questions. All right. Start at the very top. It might take a few seconds just to scroll down everything. This is what I have to put up with. I don't know if you guys can hear this, but someone's blasting. What is this? I don't know what that was. But for a long time in my neighborhood, they would blast, because Tekashi, you guys know Tekashi 6ix9ine. Tekashi 6ix9ine is from Bushwick, where I currently live in Brooklyn. So a lot of big Tekashi fans around here. So, you know, every maybe every 6-7 minutes, there's always a car blasting Tekashi. And, you know, Tekashi's like really aggressive with his, or was really aggressive with his rap. So it was always like in your face, always at all time. I didn't mind it. Also, when Bad Bunny took out Calladita, dude, that song was playing like every freaking corner here in Brooklyn. That I enjoyed, because I like that song. Still hasn't gotten old. Anyways, all right. The dreaded Fishkeeper 207, like this video 63 minutes before it started, because I know it will be fire. Danny always brings it. Much respect, sir. Appreciate that, bro. Appreciate that. Coco Butt back at it again. Will Jon Jones' next fight be at light heavyweight or heavyweight? I think light heavyweight. I think, you know, Stipe has, you know, that Cormier fight, and Jairzinho Rosenstruck is fighting Ngannou, and it's going to be hard to deny either guy. I mean, both guys already, before this fight that they're going to have at UFC on, what is it? UFC on ESPN 6, I think. By the way, I spoke to Jairzinho Rosenstruck via Skype. I think it was like a 15-minute interview about various topics. That's on MMAJunkie.com, so check that out. It's pinned on my Twitter profile. But anyways, so those guys already have a good resume. So with a win over each other, whoever wins, it's going to be hard to deny. So you got a little bit of a line there. And sure, a Jon Jones fight is big enough and merits, or doesn't merit, but is big enough for me to see that maybe there's a chance that that either guy might get skipped over, but that's still tough, because at some point, I mean, I know people hate on the UFC because sometimes they do that, but at some point they have to, you know, give in and give the right contender the shot. Like it's just hard to deny, because it just, once it causes many problems in the division, not only like being at odds with your employees or whatever, or independent contractors, but also just like, those guys have to keep fighting, and you could lose them as contenders, and they're worthy contenders and exciting contenders. I mean, how can you deny that? So there's just a lot of issues that come with that, start presenting themselves in the matchmaking area when you don't give rightful contenders their shots. So by default, they want to give rightful contenders title shots. So I think Stipe has a few fights at heavyweight before the Jones one. So with that being said, I think Jones fights at light heavyweight before he fights at heavyweight again. I think his next title fight would be at light heavyweight. Yep. Where's the next fight? Let's see. What would be the biggest upset of 2020? Well, the biggest upset would be, obviously, it's depending on the matchup, but because we do not know all the matchups that are going to happen in 2020, I will just say that the biggest or the easiest option would be to go with the fighter that's the most dominant in their division that you cannot see them losing against, and that is Valentina Shevchenko. I think so for the longest time, Jon Jones was in the position that Valentina Shevchenko is now, where there was such a big gap between him and the number one challenger that you just expected domination every time. Now that's changing. Now we're seeing guys come really close to beating Jon Jones. No one has been able to do it yet, but they're coming close, man, which makes it interesting. It makes it exciting, right? A lot of people were saying, look, the Thiago Santos fight could have been, a fluke. Fighters have nights off and all that, but then you add this Dominick Reyes performance, and all of a sudden, I think there might be something there. I really do. And it's crazy because even at whatever it is that's happening now with Jon Jones, he's still the best. That's how good that guy is. Like, he can have a little bit of a drop off, or or say whatever you want, or the game went up or whatever. He's still the best. The guy's still the best. That's how good that guy is. Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, anybody that beats Valentina Shevchenko, I would say that would be the biggest upset. I mean, Chookagian was like, Valentina Shevchenko was like minus 1,000 favorite or some shit like that. Like, it was ridiculous. Yeah, that'd be it. Coco Butt, Brock versus Jones or Stipe versus Jones? Stipe versus Jones. I think Jones destroys Brock. You're dead, Jack. I think Jones won round 1. Am I wrong? Yep, you're wrong. Yeah. I don't know how you can score that for Jones. Go rewatch it. But hey, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But no, dude. No, you're crazy. Get out of here. You're dead, Jack. You're crazy. It should be you're crazy, Jack. You should change that username. Whoops. Dad joke right there. Let's see. Okay, a lot of people just discussing stuff here. Christopher Graham, thoughts on Ortega versus Sabit? It should be 5 rounds. Where does it leave Jaid? So that fight, I believe a media outlet reported over us at MMA Junkie. We have not confirmed it, so I can't say it's confirmed. It makes sense though. Ortega has been out for a while. We know he was trying to make a comeback at UFC Busan in December. He had an injury, I believe, might have been a knee injury. I don't know if he's healed up, and this Zabit fight is actually legit. We'll find out. Either way, stay tuned to MMA Junkie, and if we confirm it, it'll be there for sure. But for purpose of this question, let's just assume that it's booked. Yeah, that's a good fight. I think Ortega needs. Obviously, he hasn't fought since the Max Holloway defeat in 2018, I believe. So he needs, a win. After such a long time off and injuries, I'd like to see Ortega get a little bit of a tune-up fight. And I think, I don't think people would complain. I don't think Zabit is that. I think it should have been Zabit versus Yair. Winner gets title shot. But nonetheless, still a good fight. Props to Ortega for taking such a tough challenger, and not looking for a tune-up. I mean, he was ready to take on the Korean Zombie before that. So, I mean, I didn't expect anything less. But, yeah, and it should be a fight night main event for sure. I mean, you can put it as a co-main event of a pay-per-view, or just on a main card of a pay-per-view, just a stacked pay-per-view. But I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that fight 5 rounds, because if we saw Zabit last fight, I think there was some questions about, what would happen in championship rounds, because it was that 3rd round that Calvin Kattar was really putting it on him and was kind of like fading, and it was pretty noticeable. And if you want to fight for the title, you ideally want to answer those questions before you get to the top and face the champ. So yeah, it should be 5 rounds. And where does that leave Jaid? I don't know, man. I don't know. Who knows? Fight KZ. He got that crazy knockout. No, never mind. I'm crazy. Shit. I don't know. Let me pull up the featherweight rankings right now, just to give you a better answer than IDK. UFC rankings. Maybe fight Renato Moicano. I mean, yeah, anybody else would be a step down. I think Jaid has done putting enough in there to get like that one fight that gets him a title shot. That fight, in my opinion, was against Zabit. Also, I believe the UFC had tried to do for that Mexico City event where I went to that event where Jeremy Stevens fought. Jair Rodriguez. I believe the original opponent that they wanted, the UFC wanted, was Brian Ortega, if I'm not mistaken. So I wouldn't have mind seeing Jair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega. That would have been a good fight. I think the one to make was Zabit Jair. Plus, that fight, they tried to book it several times. There was some anticipation there. There's history, etc. Yeah, I guess, yeah. But again, as I said, we haven't confirmed anything at MMA Junkie, so we'll see if that's the case. But just answering the question on these terms, yeah, it's a good fight, but wish they would have gone a different route with it. Christopher Graham, again, Santos versus Reyes for the rematch against Jon Jones. Yeah, similar to what I said on Twitter. Somebody asked on Twitter. I think Santos is out for a while, but I do think those guys get a little bit of a get out of jail free card, a little bit of a pass. Look, you tested Jones. You put on an exciting fight. There's people that think you won. I don't think you need a crazy path back to the title. Yep. What's your favorite Colby Covington nickname? I don't know what that means. His nickname's Chaos. I'm guessing you mean what he calls other people. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of his trash talk, but a few things have been clever. Like what? Kamaru Snoozman, that's what he calls him. Not great. He's got what? Tyquil, right? Tyquil Woodley or something like that. I don't even know. Yeah, he has a few. For the most, I'm trying to think. I think he maybe said something once that I actually thought it was funny. I'm trying to remember right now. Maybe it wasn't that funny. But I don't know. Well, this thing just jumped. Let me see. How's life different at MMA Junkie than MMA Fighting? Love your work, Danny, by Christopher. Obviously, you know, it's both MMA sites, so I'm still covering the same beat. But I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've been able to write a lot more, which is something that I wanted to do and do a little bit of more reporting and interviews. So as far as that, you know, that has changed a little bit, and I plan on doing more, hopefully. So that's been cool, yeah. But my experience at MMA Junkie has been fantastic. It's been great. I love the team. Everyone's super cool. Working alongside very talented people from OGs of the game that I used to watch, you know, at pressers and read their stories when I was just a fan of the sport, to, you know, also working with others like myself that are coming up in the game and are very talented and, you know, putting good work out there. So, yeah, it's been great. It's been a great experience to many years. Lincoln Microphone LLC says, smash the like button. That's right. If you're listening to this thing, smash the like button right now. Do me that favor. I'll be forever grateful. Let's see. Apart from landing more strikes, this is your dead jack again. Apart from landing more strikes, what is your justification for Reyes winning round one? Jones had better aggression, control, landed clear and more efficient. I think the knockdown was a slip push. Yeah, it was a push from getting punched in the stomach and, you know, in the abdomen and losing your balance from that. I mean, look, there is something about Jon Jones' style that I think it's not good. I mean, it's good if you're like, it's a fight to the death with unlimited rounds. I think in that sense, which ultimately is the purest approach to a fight, right? I think in that sense, Jones is really good. But this is a sport, right? This is we're judging a fight within 25 minutes. So yes, Reyes was landing the harder shots. But I would say this: he appeared to be a little bit, and this might not be fair, but I'm gonna say it anyways. He appeared to be a little bit more of the frantic fighter. He was all over the place. Whereas Jones, as you mentioned, your dead jack, he was a lot more composed. His shots were definitely a little bit more calculated. You could see that, and so he landed a tad cleaner. But nonetheless, this is a sport. This is you got to judge a round. You got to judge those 5 minutes. And the fact is that Dominick Reyes landed harder and landed more often. So yes, Jones might have been making it look a little more pretty with his technique. And you know, if you used to notice how he used to fight, he was really long and just ready to do crazy stuff. Nowadays, he's really shelled up and just, you know, just he does things very very calculated and very what would be the word? His game has moved into a lot, maybe even more advanced, but so I feel like that advancement is hurting him a little bit, because sometimes he's fighting too calculated and too technical, and sometimes you just gotta go in there and put some emotion to it, like Dominick Reyes was. That's why he got some success. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it's still a fight, you know. So yeah, if this was like a 20-round fight, you know, it's clear that Jon Jones was going to win that. If this was an unlimited round fight, a fight to the death, Jon Jones would have won that. I mean, we saw him pick up the steam in rounds 4 and 5. We saw Dominick Reyes fading, and we saw Jon Jones, again, still very efficient with his technique, sticking to his gun. He did look a little bit more urgent, but nonetheless maintained that style. Whereas when he was younger, he used to fight a lot more wild, and that wild stuff, because he's so good, it would pay off. It would get him a crazy knockout or a crazy submission. But yeah, that we don't see that Jon Jones anymore. It's probably just maturing, and I think his team is probably figuring out a happy in between, a happy middle, where, you know, we need you to win these rounds by doing, you know, damage and causing damage and just doing impressive things within the round. But at the same time, we want you to stay composed, minimize all kinds of risks, and you know, not take damage, you know. And I'm not just talking about for the specific fight, but just as a career in general. Like, you see Jon Jones fighting a lot smarter now, and he doesn't really get all that hurt. I mean, yeah, he takes a few punches, and you see it in his face, but it's not like he's getting battered out there. So yeah, I don't know. I just went on a little rant. I don't know if I answered your question. I don't even know what was the question. Oh, yeah, that's why he won round 1. Dominick Reyes just landed more, harder. He was a more aggressive fighter. Jones looked to be in control of the fight, but just because you're in control, that doesn't mean you're winning. You know, I can keep you at range and dictate where you're moving. You know, land 100% of the shots that I throw, but if those 100% of the shots that I throw are only 5, and the other guy is only landing 50%, but he throws 50 and landed 25, I mean, who's winning the fight, right? You can say the better fighters is the guy that was accurate and all that, but when you talk about judging a fight, is who costs more damage, right? So yeah, anyways. More aggression in round 1 to Jones. They disagree. We agree to disagree. John F. Murphy. Danny, what do you think is next for the Bullet? And thanks for the content. Well, I appreciate you tuning in. That's why this content exists. Without you guys, it wouldn't be possible. And as far as what's next for the Bullet, man, that is a tough question. There's no great answer. Whoever she's going to fight, to be honest, is at 125. All right. Whoever she's going to fight next at 125, it's probably not going to be a compelling fight as far as like an interesting buzz. I know, for example, Jessica I did make the fight a little bit exciting as far as the buildup, because she was talking a lot of trash, and, you know, she had the bulletproof vest and stuff like that, which, you know, it adds a little bit of spice to it, right? But at the end of the day, you know, you got to go by the facts, and you knew that fight was going to be one-sided, and it was. And again, not throwing any shade to Jessica, she's an amazing fighter. It's just, we're looking at Valentina Shevchenko, one of the best fighters, regardless of, you know, gender or weight, of the history of all time of the world. Like that's right there. That she's one of the most skilled fighters ever. Like, watching her is like watching Demetrius Johnson. Like, just technique, and that's it. Obviously, she's a freak athlete too, but like, just the level of technique that she has is just stupid. So I think, you know, there's no great answer. I have the rankings pulled up here, so let's take a look at them. Let's see, women's flyweight. So number 1 is still Katlyn Chookagian, contender. She lost. Number 2 is Jessica I. She got head kicked into oblivion. Number 3 is Joanne Calderwood. I believe She lost against Chookagian in her second to last fight. Her last fight, she won it, and that was against, who was it? Who she beat? She beat someone. So again, you can make that fight. There's not going to be a lot of buzz because it's, she's not on a crazy streak, but she's an exciting fighter. She's a fighter that was really big for 115, so she's a legit flyweight. Could make things interesting, but I think most people would expect a similar result. There's Roxanne Modafferi. I love Roxanne Modafferi. She's awesome. And she beat her sister, so there's a little bit of bad blood. She gave her sister her first loss. Don't forget about that, Valentina Shevchenko. And Roxy's great, very good fighter as well. There's a little bit there, I guess, but again, anybody Shevchenko fights, you're gonna favor them. You're gonna favor Shevchenko. So there's no great answer. I think there was one answer that could have been good if Macy Barber would have defeated Roxanne Modafferi convincingly. She's young. She was looking dominant until that fight. Maybe that fight would have had a little bit of buzz. But to answer your question, there's no great answer. I think at this point, you just feed Shevchenko's greatness. So it doesn't matter who she fights next. Just keep sending her 125 contenders. Keep building that legacy. Keep becoming one of the most dominant champions in the history of the UFC. Keep setting records, not only for the women's side of things, but just in the sport in general. And then when you're this big, then when you have a highlight reel that is just historic, then you do the fight with Amanda Nunes. There's higher stakes now. It's champ versus champ. It's no longer challenger versus champion. Amanda Nunes, I suspect she's going to be just as dominant, and she's going to have keep dominating. Again, I'm not talking about years here because I don't know how much longer Nunes is going to stick around the sport. She's kind of talked about retirement a couple of times. But yeah, just have them defend their belt a few times and then run it back. I know Nunes beat her twice, but I think both fights had enough controversy. Maybe not the first one, the second one. So yeah, I don't know. That'd be fun, and that'd be a good fight. Yeah. Well, also we don't know how Zhang Weili is going to do at 115 because she's a strong and powerful girl in that weight class, and if she just starts wrecking shit, just running shit at 115, maybe she becomes enough of a force that people believe she could be a threat to Shevchenko, and then we can have another champ fight. But for now, just keep Shevchenko winning and defending her belt because that's what champions do. All right. Lincoln Microphone LLC. Danny, are you still competing in jiu-jitsu? Are you still training jiu-jitsu, competing at all? No, I'm not competing. I haven't competed in a long time. And training, I trained in South Florida when I was there, like last month. I've been busy since I got back, but the plan is to start training again. I don't know how serious it'll be. I don't know if I'll compete again. But I enjoy grappling. It gets me in shape. I have fun doing it. So, and I feel healthy now, which that was like a big issue for me. So yeah, I'm gonna look to get back into it soon. Just been busy. Gotta get back into the gym too. Been boxing though, so that's kept me in somewhat of a decent shape. All right, we have about 10 minutes left. So, the fuck is this guy? I'm gonna ban this guy for nasty comments. Put user in timeout. Motherfucker, if you're gonna join this chat and you're gonna say racist shit or attack someone or a religion, get the fuck out. I don't want your view. I don't want your like. Get out of here. Or your subscription. You can unsubscribe. I don't care. Anyways. Can Dustin, the hip injury champion, stop begging for the Nate or Connor fight? There are plenty of matches, but he already dismissed Felder, Hooker, and Justin. I believe he's expressed interest about the Justin one, and also George Washington here taking a hard shot at Dustin Poirier, the hip injury champion. Look, injuries happen, man. That guy's a veteran of the sport. He's been fighting for a really long time. His body has been through a lot. I bet you a lot of people would tap out, in metaphorically speaking, if they were to undergo through the type of wars and things that guy has been through in his MMA career. I'm surprised, someone like that. He's actually very durable. someone with such a wild career, can still be, in 2020, be scrapping and be at the top of the game. I like the Nate Diaz fight. I also like the Conor fight as well. I think both fights make sense. So why not push for it? Also, he's at a point where he's not a young dude anymore. He's at the top of his game, and you want to have the biggest fights possible. So there is no problem there with, I have no issues with him like sitting out and campaigning for those fights. He should get the biggest fight he can get. And that seems to be it. He already beat Justin Gaethje. Felder and Hooker, has he fought them? But they seem to be maybe a step below. And I believe, they're fighting in Auckland. So maybe he can maybe it'll be interesting enough for him to take the winner. But let those guys fight first. Again, there's a lot of things at lightweight that need to be played out. So it's a smart thing for Dustin to kind of sit back and see what's going on. Anyways, moving on. Where does Valentina go from here? I answered that. Nat Anon, are you now putting fools to sleep in the boxing gym? No. Completely the opposite. I haven't been put to sleep because I've been responsibly sparring the right people. But no, I get tuned up for sure. Boxing's hard, man. It's really hard. I definitely look better than Stephen A. Smith on the pads. Maybe I'll post some pad work. I feel like I've done some good progress, but I'm only months into it. Obviously, it's an art that takes years to master and years to be good at it. It's actually changed a little bit with the experience, my experience watching MMA. Like with jiu-jitsu, like I've been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time, so I'm pretty aware of what's going on the ground. Sometimes some dude will bring some crazy stuff, or there's a crazy scramble where you gotta kind of take a second look. In boxing, who's getting punched in the face. So for a long time, I was just like, yeah, I know what's going on. But then knowing a little bit now, like I definitely start picking up on things that I didn't pick up before. So that's been kind of nice. That's the cool thing about, like, if you watch the sport or you cover the sport, and if you do train, it does become a little bit more enjoyable to consume. So yeah. But boxing's hard. I'm not putting anyone to sleep. I suck. Not good. Giovanni Gomez. Hola, ¿qué tal, amigo? Un saludo, un abrazo. Shout out to all my Latin American people. Los amo. Let's see. All right. We're getting close to the hour mark here, so I'm going to answer one or two more questions. Now, I see a lot of discussion here, so I'm gonna just fast forward all the way to the end. Throw questions. I'll tackle the two most compelling questions that get thrown now. So throw them right now. Who Shevchenko beat besides Joanna? Juliana Peña with a beautiful armbar. Several other very skilled fighters. Who does Blades face next? Poor Blades, man. Poor Curtis Blades. Because that man has been putting in work. Clearly a very good fighter. Getting solid wins, fighting tough opposition. But, the heavyweight is a little bit of a mess with Stipe's injury, his desire to pursue boxing and fight other contenders that he hasn't fought before. I guess then that would be good for Blades. But I really do think that Cormier fight is going to happen regardless, because that's the biggest fight in the heavyweight division. So, and that's, and he's talked about wanting big fights. I mean, he wanted to fight Brock Lesnar, so he wants to make that money. So, and then you got Rosenstruck and Ngannou, who, to be honest, deserve a title shot more than Blades. So it's just bad timing to be at the top. And sitting out, has its issues. So yeah, I don't know what's next for him. I have no idea. I have no clue. Another fight. We got Reyes or Santos. Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't know. I was really impressed with Dominick Reyes on Saturday night. Really impressed. I mean, I knew he was good before, but that performance, that's one of the best performances of his career. I mean, he looked amazing against Jon Jones. But Santos also looked amazing against Jon Jones. I would say Santos, but I do not feel confident about picking him to beat Dominick Reyes. Should Athletic Commission be held accountable for putting inexperienced judges on such big cards? Again, that one judge, Solis, that I was mentioning, I believe he's experienced. I believe he knows about mixed martial arts. And they should be held accountable. Like when you have such a crazy scoring that everyone on the broadcast, people are complaining about it, fans are complaining about it, media are complaining about it, the president of the UFC is complaining about it, fighters are complaining about it. When the entire world is complaining about something, commission does have a responsibility to speak to the media, to put out statement out there, to explain the reasoning as to why that happened. Like, we need to know why. Again, I've disagreed with many people, and I think this is sometimes like something people have a difficulty doing, is like discussion is discussion. Like, don't make it any more than that. Like, we can disagree on a million various like topics. I don't care. I mean, we will disagree. Like, you're never gonna, literally the only person you will agree with 100% is yourself, and even that, like, there's people are conflicted. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's gonna be people. You're never going to always be in the same conclusion all the time. But if you explain to me why you got to a certain conclusion, maybe it'll change my mind a little bit. Maybe it'll help me understand why you made that decision a little bit. Maybe it'll just strengthen my view, and I would feel more strongly about my decision and versus yours, etc. But like, if you put an articulate statement, if you're able to possibly explain and put together good reasoning why you came to that conclusion, then I think that's good to have, and I think that that brings to light everything, and that'll help us explain judging and many other things. I think transparency is big, but like, if you have such a crazy scorecard and just never address it, just it is what they say in MMA, I think that's stupid. I think someone should say something about that. Whether it's the commission, whether it's the judge himself, we need to know how that person came to that scoring. We need to know that. But will we know? Probably not. So, yeah. All right. Wow, there's so many now. I can't keep up. You're dead, Jack, just because like you had that wanky question. But I'll read another one of yours. I slept at 6 a.m. to watch Jones fight. How would I justify this for my sanity? Pretty much every week. I'm guessing you're not Eastern, because that you're probably overseas in the UK or something. Yeah, man. I mean, that's the sport. Yeah, and but I know exactly. When I was a fan, like I would watch everything, and I mean, I'm still a fan, but it's a little different now that I work in MMA media. But yeah, MMA fans are crazy. What can I say? If you have a passion for MMA, that passion is strong, dude. Combat sports is definitely, because look, I'm a fan of soccer, I'm a fan of football, a fan of other sports. But like, there's something about combat sports that has a certain, I don't know. There's a difference between that and regular sports. And I think the people that are really into it and the hardcores, and if you're watching this live chat, you're most likely hardcore. You have that, and it's cool. Yeah, it's definitely its own unique thing. All right, I think I'm gonna call it quits here. Yeah, let's end it here. It's an hour and 3 minutes in. So yeah, I got stuff to do on Sunday. Got my full day ahead. Today's my day off, so I'm gonna play soccer later tonight and play some Xbox right now, and maybe clean the apartment and run a few errands. So got a busy day ahead. I appreciate everybody that tuned into this live chat. I appreciate everyone who submitted a question on Twitter, especially the people who submitted questions on Twitter. It helps me get right into the video, come up for the title for the video, and already have something to discuss right off the bat. Also, appreciate everyone that participated on the live chat as well. Huge props to all of you guys who threw questions. I appreciate that as well. Again, this program is not possible without you guys. So thank you so much for the support. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications so you know when I go live in the future. Also, you can follow me on Instagram, my Facebook page. I've been starting to post again, so you guys can go to facebook.com/DennisSegura.tv. Give me a like there, follow me on Twitter, the whole thing. And that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the fights last night. Have a good rest of your Sunday, and that is it. That's all I got for you guys. Later.